Hello, everybody. Lots of you commented and sent me email, and you told me that please tell us what's happening in Iran, especially about the current war between Iran and the United States of American Air Forces and the Israel regime. So that is why in this first video, that is an interview with Ali Abdullahi, we are going to talk about and get more deep in the discussions related to the military power of Iran and the current war, and we want to discover more details about nowadays in Iran. So, hello Ali, how are you doing?
Hello, Fatima. Thank you so much for inviting me, and let's have a talk about this.
So, thank you. As you know, there are lots of noise around Iran. All news, all media, Eastern media and Western media, all of them are talking about situations in the Middle East, not about Iran. A lots of news are full of actually the energy crisis, the Israeli regimes, Iranian missiles. So could you tell us about what's happening in Iran and in Middle East, and could you tell us about the situation that is not portrayed in the Western media?
Yeah. Previously, as you know, we were in war. The Middle East was in war about 2 or 3 days after the 7th October of 2023. And concentration of the peace workers and who care about the peace was on Middle East. But really, Middle East was not important for Eastern people, Western people, and most of the Western and Eastern people. The reason was that the war in the Gaza and in the Middle East didn't have any effect to them, because the Arabian countries and Iran and the other countries inside the Middle East were exporting the oil, and the other persons were coming to the GCC countries and the Persian Gulf countries. And they were in peace, and the situation was stable. So this didn't have any effect on them. But you know that Middle East has the most oil in the world, and it exports the most oil in the world. So it's important. But the previous war didn't have any effect now. But the concentration of people is on Iran and the war, because their life is affected by this price increasing. And as you know, for example, here in Hong Kong, the oil price was increased about 10% to 20% or something like this. And the other Western countries, like European countries, that they don't produce themselves, and they are not as industrial as the previous. The increase in gas or oil was about 30% to 50%. So it had so much effect on them and effect on their life, and so they are concentrating about that. Yeah, that's the reason. So the concentration of people in the world was mostly on Iran, but the fact is that Shia people and Muslim people are so different from the other countries. So the most of the people in the world cannot understand what's happening really in the Iran, because if you encounter with a war, you will go to some places that be safe, that be more safe, as Israeli people going to the more safe places. But Iranian people are in the street, and they are resisting. And why this happens? Because to Iranian people, and especially Shia people, it's most important to maintain their independence, and they don't want to be under governance of the Western countries or even Eastern countries, as the GCC countries and the Arabian countries and the Persian Gulf countries are under the governance of the Western countries. So it's one reason. And the other reason is that they cannot understand what's happening in Iran, and they didn't know that how Iran is resisting for about 3 weeks against the most power in the world at the history. The other reason is how we are fighting.
Under the airstrikes, hour by hour, every night, especially the people of Tehran, people of Isfahan, they are under a heavy pressure, right?
Yeah, but they are not afraid. I asked my I ask my friends, and they are not afraid, but at all the day they are encountering with fighter jets, and they're bombing beside them, and they don't fear about that, and they go to help the people that were under attack, and they were under the buildings. And it is possible that it has the double tap, or they also be injured inside that
So
sites and inside
yeah,
that
could you
building.
tell us what is the reason that people every night come to the streets and express their support of the Islamic Republic of Iran? What is the reason? Because 2 months ago there was a very heavy protest based on the economic reasons, economic crisis. So, but now the situation is very different. Could you tell us? It's so complicated to understand, especially for people outside of Iran. They cannot understand that why is the situation different with the previous months, 2 months ago, with protests in the streets.
The main reason is that pro-government people who support Islamic Republic of Iran, they don't want that military powers, military persons encounter with also some protests inside the Iran in the middle of the war. It was the main reason that the people in these months are holding and maintaining the streets, and all the nights and all the day they are inside the street. It's the main reason. And also after the Ayatollah Khamenei, people encounter is that if they don't resist, and if they don't go to the streets, their country will collapse. Their country will divide to some sub-regions, and also they will lose their independence. So it was the most important point for the pro-government people who are inside the streets, and also they are the people that don't fear from this. Independency or their government, the revolution of Iran is more important for them than their life. 1 month or 2 months remaining in the street is not a heavy thing for them.
So I think it's not just about the pro-government people. I saw photos in social media that a lot of girls without hijab, they also come to the street, and they mentioned that, okay, we didn't love the Ayatollah Khamenei, we don't like the Islamic Republic of Iran, but because that the country of Iran, its national borders are under danger, so that is why we want to do some things to protect our country. Is that right, or it's just for the supporters of the Islamic Republic of Iran?
That's right, but not totally right, because for example, the previous war that we had with Israel, the people were pro-government, and they were inside the streets for pro-governments. But after a while, after the protests and the situation inside the protests, and that thousands of people were killed, it's made a problem, and it divided the people to two groups. And after this war, this gap was not supported, and this gap was not filled with the emotions of pro-government and the emotions of maintaining our independence. So as you know, many diaspora of Iran and many Iranian people who live in the foreign countries also wanted the Trump to attack Iran. And also many people inside the foreign countries don't want this, and they
I
are
guess they are like
pro-government.
real terrorists.
Yeah.
Because
But
they didn't mention anything about the school of Minab.
yeah,
Even Western
but
media also
I know.
showed lots of violent photos of the Minab.
But the real fact about the society of Iran is that now it's divided to two separate parts. But after some days from the war, this gap was filled a bit. After they saw the Minab school, as you mentioned, and also that they saw that they are attacking the gas infrastructure, they are attacking the infrastructure that are not military bases, and the buildings of the people. So this gap was filled a bit, but the propaganda, then the social media, the reality that the social media made for the people in last 2 months, and we were under uh, the most powerful media attack on Iran in last 2 months.
Or
So this gap would not be filled easily after this war and the middle of this war, but it was filled a bit or somehow. Yeah.
It's very important for the audience of this channel to take care about this point that the Iranian diaspora, especially in the Western countries and especially in the United States of America and Europe countries, they can never present all Iranian people, right? Now, unfortunately, one of the worst things about the Islamic Republic of Iran is about media. You mentioned that. So, because of that, they can never portray the real Iranian people who are some nationalist groups, some religious groups that come to the streets every night. And they are sad about the war. They are sad about the Ayatollah Khamenei's assassination. But
Yeah,
it's important.
the fact is that they are so far from the reality in Iran. It's one point what's happening in Iran, because the media that they are seeing, they are watching, makes them many makes them many problem idea about the reality in Iran. That's one point, and the other point is that they lived, for example, in 20 years inside the United States, or whole of their life inside the United States, and so they don't understand what's happening inside Iran, and they don't care about Iran also. As you know, the people, they drop their work and they are inside the street for 1 month, but the Iranian diaspora who live in Los Angeles, they just go to protest at the weekend. So they are not ready to just lose their works for 1 day for Iran.
Yeah.
And also in the last, why Iran is in these situations, because we were under sanctions for 20 years, and so most of the sanctions were 20 years ago, but all of the sanctions are for 47 years. But in these 20 years, they didn't have any protest against the sanctions. They didn't have any just one protest inside Los Angeles or Toronto or Vancouver or the other cities inside the West countries against the sanctions that were illegal. We didn't make a nuclear bomb. We didn't make anything in these 20 years. And all of this period of time, they were mentioning that Iran is near the making the bomb or something like that. And okay, so the Iranian protests now, Iranian diaspora in that countries, they didn't tell anything about the sanctions, and also they didn't do anything for Iran. They didn't put their time in last 20 years. They want the United States attack Iran. If the United States was victory and the
They
government
think
changed
that
and Iran was not
Trump
divided,
can
and
bring freedom for them.
yeah, and all the thing was ready for them, and nothing was happened, and the situation of Iran went better. Okay, we come to Iran maybe for just travel or just for fun, but
They don't want
in
to pay any cost
reality,
for the reality
yeah,
in the Iran.
if Iran be divided to some sub-regions, or if the United States attack the infrastructure of Iran and Iran be in the worst situation, so they will not return to Iran to build anything,
Exactly.
and they will not do anything. Okay, they will not live their life inside the Western countries. They will not drop their jobs. They are not ready to just 1 day inside the week come to the protest, and they all the time go at the weekend. So that's logical that they don't want to, that they will
So,
not do anything for Iran, that they have some expenses for them.
so in conclusion, for this part, we can say that for becoming more familiar with the country, if you want to be a specialist in the sociology or anthropography, you need to follow the news on the ground of a country, not just following the news in the Western medias, in CNN, in Fox News, or even Al Jazeera. You have to ask the people that are living inside that country. So let's talk about the power. what is the really power of Iran? Because it's more than 20 days that Iran is fighting and resisting and protecting itself against the brutal attacks of the United States of America and the Israeli regime's forces. But they sold this theory in all social media that the Iranian regime will become destroyed completely in just 3 days, or in just 1 week, or 2 weeks. But now it seems that Iran is making actions in more powerful way day by day. So what's that mean? It's so complicated that inside a country, just in one side of this war is Iran alone itself, and also with some help of some groups like Hezbollah and Ansarullah or something like them. But they are not states. And the other side, we are witnessing Israeli regimes, some European supports, especially about the air forces and the United States of America, with its most modern jets and guns. So it's complicated. Could you tell us what's happening and what does it mean of the power of Iran?
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to mention for the how we resisted against the United States and Israel was that one side was the people inside the streets, and they could control the protests and the other effects of the things that the America and the United States and the Israel were hoped to use the protests for themselves to collapse the state and the government inside Iran. This one was one side that people resisted and they could protect their government, and the other side was the resistance of Iran military. The reason that the people, I said that people of world don't know how we are resisting. It's one of that is our military power. When this theory that started that we can resist against the classic, the most powerful classic army inside the world, it was the Ukraine war. What happened inside the Ukraine war? Shahed drone is the most popular and most famous drone inside the world, and inside the Ukraine war, Russia used so many Shahed drones that they renamed it and they produced themselves at the end, but they used so many of these drones, and no classic army can resist against such a power, because if you want to use the missiles to attack against the Shahed and you defense against the Shahed, you need to pay the missiles that each one of them is $1 or $2 million. And so when, for example, 400 Shahed drones coming through you cannot use...
$4 million, not $1 million.
Okay, we have different air defenses and okay. Yeah. So they sent the Shahed drones in the batches like 300, 400. So no one of the air defenses can resist against such attacks. And it was the reality that the world encountered with that the classic war is finished, and we cannot resist against classic war. After a while, Elon Musk had a tweet that its meaning was it was about 2 years or 3 years ago, that its meaning was that Iran and Russia developed the war to another side, that they are making some drones, they are making some military guns that are much cheaper than the classic war. And so they were more brilliant in the recent years that they developed this, and no classic army can resist against such a war. One side is that the classic army's expenses are so much. Okay, they are more accurate than, for example, each one of these missiles is more accurate than the Shahed. But against them, so many Shahed drones, they don't have any chance. And also, one other thing is that Western countries, are not now industrial powers. After the Ukraine war, the most problem of European countries was that they couldn't replace their air defenses with the equipment that they make by themselves. The industrial countries are in the world now are China and the other countries, also like Iran and the countries such how, but the United States and the European countries are not as industrial as the previous and the World War II or after that the Cold War. One other reason is that so they cannot replace it easily. So the most important point in the war is that we are not fighting against United States in classic situation. Yeah, Trump is right. They attacked our navy, and we don't have any navy inside the Persian Gulf or the Caspian Sea, and also they attacked our fighter jets. Our fighter jets were for 40 or 50 years ago, so they couldn't resist against F-35 or F-16 or some fighter jets like this, and they didn't have any chance. But in last 20 years or last 30 years, we changed our power to something that was much cheaper, and we could resist against them in about 100 bytes of missiles, 100 bytes of
it's a
drones.
new military doctrine, right?
Yeah. That was the fact. I mentioned that Elon Musk also mentioned that they were so brilliant that they investigated on such drones and such missiles and in such doctrine to resisting it. And he mentioned also the war in the next years would be mostly on the drones, would be mostly on the equipments with AI, integration of AI and the integration of cheap equipments. That's the point about the next generation of the war. So the United States with the Navy, one of its Navy is about $13 billion. So it's an easy target, mostly more than be huge war equipment, because it was made for just classic war. Not resistance against 100 batches of Shah drones and the other drones that Iran have and the other missiles that have. So it was the game changer. It was the point that it changed this game and we could resist. So the Navy is not important for us. Our fighter jets is not important for us to resist against such a power and such a classical army. And it was the point.
Warfare. Now, could you tell us the different dimensions about the power of Iran? Because, Morgenthau taught everybody that power is not based just on the military powers. It has the different dimensions like ideologies, the cultures, the geography, pologeography, the straits like Straits of Hormuz or Bab el-Mandeb. So could you tell us what are all these different aspects of the power have affected this war?
Yeah, one thing is that the military persons inside the Iran, they don't they are not free from this. One most important thing is in the Muslim people is this point that they are not fear from the death, and most of the people know why, because they want to death that go to heaven. Heaven should be. One of the powers that I mentioned was the power that Iran had because of its equipments that are not developed for classical war, and it's developed for the next generation of the war. One of that is its equipments. The other is that Iranian soldiers and also the Muslim soldiers are not afraid of this, and all the world know this. And I want to mention that especially Shia people, they are not afraid of this. So you see that many Iranian soldiers are killed, but they are still resisting, and they are replaced by some others.
It's kind of that
Yeah,
they always welcome the martyrdom, you know. It's kind of
yeah.
ideology among the Muslims that, inshallah, in next videos we will talk more about that because it's a dimension of the Iran and also Gaza, Lebanon, all Muslim countries that can 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 never be understood by the Western ideologies and the Western medias.
Yeah, one reason is that, and there are many other reasons. Also, structure of Iran. Iran is full of mountains, so you cannot destroy the military bases that are under the mountains. One other thing is this that the military bases, mostly the missile bases, are under the mountains, and so how many bases do you want to destroy by so much expensive bombs that can destroy the bases under the mountains? Okay, one time the United States attacked Fordo and could destroy it, but it was so expensive for it. So it cannot defeat against the 100, 200, 300 missile bases under the mountains. It's the one
And this is
reason.
fine geopolitics.
Yeah, it's one reason that it's the structure of Iran. If you see the map of Iran, you see that it's most of Iran is just mountains. So they cannot resist against such military bases, and they cannot destroy such military bases. The other reason is that, as all the people know, that Iran had made many military groups inside the other countries and supported them. One of them is Ansarullah, one of them is Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq, and one is Hezbollah in Lebanon. And also the military bases of the United States are on the ground, and they are easy target for example, inside the Iraq, or inside the GCC countries, or beside the Ansarullah, inside Iraq, beside the Kataib Hezbollah and the other military groups that they are attacking the United States bases, and also inside and we have the Hezbollah that is attacking the Israel after starting this war. So it's another part of the Iranian power that is not defined the classical war, because these are not a state. And the Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq is not a state. So how do you want to destroy the Kataib Hezbollah? How do you want to destroy the Hezbollah? And how do you want to destroy? You couldn't even destroy Hamas after 2 years of war, because they were not state.
Because it's based on the ideology and cultural things that can actually expand itself among the people and the new generation.
One
Even
thing is
after
that
bombing a lot,
yeah.
thousands.
Yeah, one thing is
attacks.
that, but the other thing is that, it's not government, so you cannot collapse that government and get the capital of that country and okay, it's finished. No, and also the military bases of the United States is an easy target, but Iranian for the groups that I mentioned in Iraq, for example, it's an easy target. Or for Iran, that is attacking the military bases in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia, in UAE, and such countries. So they are on the ground and not under the mountains, and there is attacks. As you saw that Iran attacked them many times, and also Kataib Hezbollah and the other groups inside the Iraq attacked the United States military bases so many times. This is another reason, that is the structure of Middle East. And also the other reason is that the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf was for Iran for 3,000 years. So here is our place. And
there are a lot of historical reports
yeah,
that prove
and
it.
one side of Persian Gulf is totally under government of Iran, and also the Hormuz, one side of the Hormuz, and the ships that go through the Hormuz, that is totally for Iran. So The thing is that the 20% of the 15 or 20% of the oil export, and also most of the LNG export of the world and gas export of the world from Qatar and the UAE are from the Strait of Hormuz, and so it's for Iran. And suppose that you're not, if you put your navy inside the Strait of Hormuz or inside the Persian Gulf, your navy is a good target for the Iranian missiles. As I mentioned, that you don't have any resistance against the Iranian missiles, and because they are in 100 batch, for example, or 100 batch of drones. So you cannot resist against them, and you cannot protect your $13 billion navy against the Iranian missiles or drones. So you cannot move your navy, your fighter jets inside the Hormuz, inside the Persian Gulf, and it's the situation that made it impossible for Trump, that he wanted help from the other countries, that Iran cannot attack their navy because they would be many countries, and Iran cannot, for example, if the United States could bring the other countries, so Iran couldn't attack to all of the military bases of those countries. It would raise many problems for Iran. The Trump and the most powerful army also cannot go through the Hormuz Strait. And also the Bab el-Mandeb is not is not under fight and under attack now. But previously it was under attack of Ansarullah, and Ansarullah also didn't start the war now. But previously, when it was under attack, their United States couldn't resolve that problem. And after that, they resolved that by just negotiation. Why they couldn't resolve that? Because they encounter with so many batches of drones under the mountains of Sana'a, Saada, or some other cities inside the Yemen. That the Yemen also, at the left of Yemen, that is beside the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb, is full of the mountains. So also the same as Iran, they developed many bases on their mountains, and the United States couldn't do anything about that. So after that, they just negotiated, and so they resolved the problem, and the ships could go through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. All of these measurements, all of these points, all of these powers made Iran able to resist against the United States inside its home. The Middle East is our home. But the Middle East is our home, but it's not their home, and it's made them so much problem.
So there is a question that is asked a lot in the social medias, that the airstrikes and the American and Israeli jets have bombed a lot of missiles towns under the ground, the entrance of them. So what do you think about this point? Because it makes the situation very difficult for Iran.
Yeah, as I mentioned, they could destroy, for example, our fighter jets, they could destroy our navies, but they could do many things to us.
And
also inside
the entrance of the missile towns under the ground.
No, really they couldn't, because you cannot destroy the mountains easily, and the military bases under the ground easily. Really, it's not an easy target. Mm-hmm. And it needs special bombs, a special map for doing that, and they just could do it to attack the entrance way of those military bases. These military bases have so many entrance ways, and also they could resolve our attacking the entrance, and they could clean that part and repeatedly use that entrance. So that's the point, that they cannot attack. They cannot really effective. They cannot have real effective attack to our missile military bases. Those are underground. So you can see that the Shahed drones and the other missiles count that we attacked the other United States military bases, and the Israel was not decreased in recent days, in the last 10 days or last 20 days. It was the point. And the other point is that Shahed or the other missiles that we have are so cheap, and they are not made from so high-tech technologies. Yeah, its technology was developed inside Iran. In somehow it is also high-tech, but not as much as the missiles that the United States has, the Israel has. So we can also produce these missiles under the ground in the middle of the war. That's the point. You can build a drone that in the middle of the war that is expenses about $20,000. $20,000 is not anything in the military power. So you can easily make it inside the war if you make some bases under the mountains that not be attacked easily. So and also the drones and the missile power of Iran will not be finished. And it's a lie that Trump is saying.
Trump believes that by the assassination of the Ayatollah Khamenei and lots of generals and the political heads of the Islamic Republic of Iran, they can bring the change regime or lead to collapse this structure. So, but now it's unbelievable that how this structure has been resisting until the 3 or 4 weeks after the start of this war. So
one thing is that you can use one map for one time or at most 2 times. You were fighting against Iran in the last 3 years, and also the groups that Iran supported. So you killed many famous and many important persons inside this structure. For the first war that we had with Israel, and also previous that, for example, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah and the other persons that were so much important. After a while, Iran understood that should do something. So now it's not, the structure is not totally dependent on the person. So and also after the first war, they defined many replacement for each person, for each important person inside this structure. So they cannot attack this structure at all, because you can use one plan for 1 time or 2 times at most. And so Iran is also can resist against this problem. And after a while, you don't know the persons that are replaced by them. And it's one another point. That's okay. Some people were famous for many years, and they were on top of that structure. But after a while, you also didn't see one video from Ayatollah Khamenei now, the replacement of previous leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, and you didn't see any video of that, and you don't know that who you are encountering with. You are not familiar with this. Or after Ali Larijani, who is the replacement of that? You don't know, and you are not familiar with him. Or other also the military persons that were more important in the structure, but now you don't know the replacement.
So actually, there is a sense in the all Middle East countries, especially the Lebanon, Hamas in Palestine, and Iran and Iraq. They actually they made some cards to play for having more resilience in these situations. Because in the recent decades, not just in recent 3 years, in the recent 3 decades, there had been a lot of terrors in the Middle East. So that is why it just expanded tensions in this middle. It doesn't work anymore, right?
Yeah, it doesn't work because one special map you can use it 1 time and no many times. So they were ready. definitely they were ready for the second war, and it was obvious that the Mossad and Israel are expert in the terror and in targeting the specific and the special people. So we were ready for that. It's obvious.
Yeah. So, in conclusion, do you want to add another things? You know, there are two scenarios about this conflict. Whenever Iran win this conflict or won't win this conflict, we will face a new structure in the Middle East, a new actually regimes in the Strait of Hormuz and also in the borders of Iran and Iraq and Iran and Turkey. So that is why that the map of Middle East will be changed, whatever will happen. The benefits for Iran or in the benefits for Israel and Americans. So what do you think? What is your perspective about this point, about the energy of the future of energy of the Middle East, about the future of the political systems after this conflict?
It also depends on where will this war finish and where will it be finalized. So if we be able, for example, to maintain the Hormuz Strait, so we can do many things with that. We can get money from that, so we can also don't let to the United States Navy come inside that or something like this. But it depends that where does this war finish? We can maintain it or no. Our infrastructure will be destroyed or no. The infrastructure of also the GCC countries will remain or no. It's dependent on how much we can resist and how much of our drones and missiles are remained and many different things, and it totally depends on the
Depends on many
situation.
factors,
Yeah.
especially about the price of the oils and the gas in the Western countries. I mean, there are lots of factors that are affecting this conflict that are not in the Middle East.
Yeah, that's also true. And also, the European countries are not too much important for the United States. It's a real fact. And okay, the United States has oil itself. It will not encounter with too many problems itself, but the situation in the Middle East will change because previously the safety of the GCC countries was covered by the United States, but now the military bases of the United States itself is a target for Iran and the other also countries. So it will not bring them peace and it will not bring them the safety. And these are all the reasons. Also, the role of, for example, the Iran wanted to take the yuan instead of dollar in the trade of oil. One other thing was that, and I say that it really depends on how Iran and how United States and how GCC countries will work and will play in this chess. It's totally dependent
You know,
on
a
all
lot
of
of
these factors.
a lot of political experts like Mearsheimer always says that United States of America actually, obviously, it has no strategy in its military doctrine by attacking in the Iran. You know, because Iran knew that this conflict would happen one day, and as I told you, Iran actually made a lot of cards to play in the recent decades for this war. But obviously, Trump has no any strategy in the military of the new doctrine for America. You told that yes, America has oil and this country itself is not affected by the price of energy. But I think it will be affected. Do you know why? Because the American allies and the European countries, India, Pakistan, and lots of Japan, and lots of countries in the world. You know, the American economic structure in the global banks are based on the price of the energy all around the world. So that is why the price of energy is important, especially for the America that is the head of the world banks. So that is why
Yeah,
there are lots of
yeah,
weakness
but
for
really,
America.
but is yeah, but the For example, the energy price inside the Japan is important for the United States? No, it wants money from the Japan. And also, is the oil price inside the European countries important for you? No. For United States, no. It's definitely not important. But one other point is that the governance of United States up the petrodollar, up the petroleum, up the oil is much important, and it doesn't want that its governance over dollar over the oil be replaced by the Chinese governance or Russia governance. It's the important point for the United States, and it's the main lose point for them. And also, why they didn't have any doctrine against Iran, because they thought that Iran cannot resist against them, and it's also myself before the war I couldn't imagine that how we can resist against such a power, because it's so much powerful. It's the reality.
Especially after
In
a
the
lot of
class,
assassinations in Iran.
yeah, because it's brought about 400 fighter jets around Iran. So how you can resist? And the other people also didn't think that Iran can resist. So they were thinking that okay, we will kill their leader, and the war will be finished in 3 or 4 days. Okay, maybe their government doesn't collapse, but they cannot resist, and they will be silent. And after that, the war will be finished. And they didn't think that the Iran attacked the GCC countries, the military bases of the United States inside the GCC countries. And also, they didn't think that the Hormuz Straits will be closed. These were the things that they didn't think about that. And yeah, after a while, so when you don't have this idea that Iran can do such things, so how and you are not ready for that war, you cannot resist more than 1 month, 2 months, or something like that. And so you are threatening to destroying the infrastructure and something like that to the people of Iran and the government of Iran being
Increase
the
the
fear.
pressure on people.
Yeah. So so you want that the war be finalized in 1 month. That's the reason. You don't have more missiles, you don't have more equipments for a 3 months war. It is the reason that it is increasing the pressure on the people of Iran. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Ali Abdullahi. So if you have any questions, please write down in the comments. We will answer all of them. Thank you so much for watching this video.